I was so really interested to see that this movie was coming out at this time, and I got a screener for it. So I'm always honest. I believe bias can exist. You just have to be honest about it. So yeah, I got offered a critic screener for this, and that's how I watched the film. But what's really interesting about it is I don't know that I was even targeted for it necessarily based on my location, but in a weird way, I'm like ideally the perfect candidate for this, except for the whole being blind part. This film doesn't have audio description, but we'll get to that. For those who have followed my trajectory, I'm now part of the Critics Association of Central Florida. Central Florida. I live in Orlando. And this is uh, not far from our current Little League champions, which were from Lake Mary, which is like a hop, skip, and a jump. Just like literally, there's like Orlando, then there's Stanford and Lake Mary. And like I've been to Lake Mary, I drove to Lake Mary back when I could see and still drive. So like I know where Lake Mary is conceptually. I saw on the news all of the like the homecoming parades and stuff that they had for the team coming back and for winning the World Series this year. So I'm like right over there. There's like there's the current Little League champions, and then I get sent a movie about Little League from 2002. And I'm just like, this is when you think that studios don't put a lot of thought into their release calendars, they obviously do. Well Go, which is not, they're not Warner Brothers, they're not Disney. Somebody had to have thought of this. Somebody was like, okay, so when are people going to be the most interested in a movie about Little League? Why not right around the Little League World Championship series, right? Because if anybody's going to be paying attention, then it's going to be that. So kudos to you, sir. Whoever made that choice to say, because it's Labor Day weekend, and choices at the box office, right? Because last week was like The Crow, and nobody wanted to see that. That was, I don't know. I've not heard great things. So this is You Gotta Believe. I'm John Starr from MacMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic, and I was given critic screening access to You Gotta Believe, which means I've seen a film that's currently in theaters, and I did not have to go to theaters to see it. I win. Um, but yeah, there was a sort of this caveat understanding that, this title didn't have audio description. Do you still want to review it? And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, I do have awards consideration stuff. Like if you follow my TV blogging stuff on my website, macmovieguy.com, I've been trying to catch up on Interview with the Vampire. That doesn't have audio description, but it's really big with another one of the critics guilds that I'm with, GALECA. We nominated and voted for it. So I'm trying to stay up to date on Interview with the Vampire so that I am able to vote for that, for the Dorian Awards. So, yeah, I'm doing my part. I don't just shut down and put my fingers in my ear and pretend that the world doesn't exist when it doesn't have audio description. But we talk about it, why it needs audio description, and should a blind person choose this title when it doesn't have audio description. So this is a rabbit hole that we're going to go into, and Welgo's going to find out what this is like. And hopefully, I think this review will probably pass as just honesty and not anything else. So what is You Gotta Believe? It's a Little League movie, right? Yeah, it's a Little League movie. It's got Luke Wilson and Greg Kinnear are the two stars that would pull you in. There are other people here, obviously, because neither one of those people would believably be able to play in the Little League. So yeah, there are a bunch of little kids here, but yeah, it's a Little League movie, and it takes place in 2002. There's a team in Fort Worth that has an inspirational true story that takes them to the World Series. What is that inspirational true story? Well, I don't believe, I know that they send out these, and I got a press kit for this too that has like a summary, sort of. I mean, really what this film is about are these two coaches and their friends, and Greg is actually kind of on top here. He's kind of the main coach of the team, and Luke Wilson is the assistant coach slash best friend, and they go way back. There's a story that Greg later tells that lets you know that these two have gone way back in terms of their friendship. And they're kids on the team. Luke's Bobby Jr. is on the team. Later he gets called Rocket, which is like, I love when he gets called Rocket too, and he's like, are they making fun of me? I'm like, dude, that's a cool name. Like, if they're making fun of you, own it and be like, damn, my name's Rocket now. Like, Rocket Raccoon. Like, I don't know, just wish people would call me Rocket. That'd be a cool nickname. So Luke Wilson finds out that he has cancer, and that changes everything for this film, because then the whole film becomes about his cancer, either indirectly or directly, as he has to figure out what to do, how to fight it, what his treatment process looks like. But at the same time, he wants to support his son in Little League, and one of his joys in life is watching his son play Little League, which is what, when Greg Kinnear is trying to think about dropping out as coach, Luke is like, listen, this is what's going on in my life. I need you to keep coaching, because really, I just love seeing my son play baseball. And it's one of those like heartwarming dad experiences. It's just like, wow, they're going for it. This is a dad movie. Dads are going to go to this movie and just be like, oh my God. It's very emotional. This is the live like you were dying for films. This Tim McGraw's Live Like We Were Dying just personified into a film. So they take this little ragtag team and they work it, and they were offered an opportunity to face, I guess somebody needed to play the team that was locally, that was deemed sort of like the best of the best, and like, oh, well, obviously they're going to play for the opportunity for the World Series, but first they have to have sort of like a qualifying game against another team. So they offer Greg Kinnear's team, which is basically like the worst team in the league. These kids start off always terrible in these movies. I don't understand that. Like, I don't know. Is there not a possibility of having a team that's maybe like 4-6? They have a slightly losing record, and they're like, oh, we'll work harder next time. Why is every single inspirational story always about taking kids who fundamentally can't even play the sport in which they're playing and suddenly turning them around into they're like star athletes, Like, there's always like these like montages of like training, and it's like you take the kid who could barely walk before, and suddenly he's just like sprinting around the bases, and the kid who couldn't throw before, couldn't even get the ball across the mound, is like pitching like 100 miles an hour, and they're like, oh my God. It's just like, it's always like the worst team. When you think about all of these films, any film, pick them, it's always somebody is being hired to take the worst people and turn them into the best people. That's every film ever. It's always the worst sports team. It's never like well, we're not great. We're sort of mid-pack, we're mid-range performers. We could be doing better. So I know it's based on a true story, but I kind of wonder, were they really this bad? And then somebody stepped in and they were like, oh, well, we got to do this for Luke. Anyway, so they do that, and based on true story, you can look it up and see what happens. I can't really go into more spoilers than that, but I just wanted to be honest with you about what this film is about, because I know some people, they go into things and then they like, nobody told me this film is about cancer. So I feel like you kind of have to mention that. Everything has a trigger warning nowadays. I listened to something the other day and they were like, the following presentation features depictions of violence. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. We're there. We're just, we are there. The following presentation features depictions of smoking. Like, we're just going to start warning people of everything. Just, that is what MPAA ratings are for. Like, we're putting them in front of films, or TV shows or whatever. It just, the following film features depictions of, I don't care. people that you have access to the NBA rating, which distinctly tells you what is in films when it comes to those kind of things. However, there are things that sometimes we don't talk about, like cancer. Nobody has ever rated a film rated PG for cancer. So I figured that was worth pointing out. So there you go. Is it good? Remember, I'm a blind film critic, and I was not given audio description. This film does not have existing audio description. I did ask for it. They did check. It does not have existing audio description. Wellgo does seem, as a company, open to the idea of incorporating audio description at some point. So we'll work on that. But I'm optimistic, but I remain eternally optimistic. I would not recommend this for a blind person, and it just wouldn't be a great experience unless you're personally invested or really love baseball movies and just like to sit around and hear kids talking about baseball. There are references to things that clearly you can't see. There are the baseball scenes, for example. Like, anytime somebody's pitching or hitting or running around the field, did they catch the ball after it was hit? Did it go out of the park? Where did it go? There's so many things involved with that, with, those kind of things. There are conversations, and it's like always there's something insinuated that like people are eavesdropping, and it's like, where were they? How far away were they standing? Was it really obvious they were eavesdropping? We don't really get the progression of Luke Wilson's character, and Luke as he battles cancer. He just, if he's doing anything that sort of like changes his performance or morphs, or if they've decided to change the way that he looks. Sometimes people with cancer, when they go into treatment, their hair falls out, stuff like that. You would have no idea of any of that happening here. Greg Kinnear's character is less dynamic. He's pretty straightforward. He just kind of, I don't know. I've never seen a more straightforward character from Greg Kinnear. I don't think he's ever played one before. This character is face value the same person the whole way through. He's very lightly changed by his friend's cancer thing, but it's a very flat performance from Greg Kinnear. The story around him is what's interesting, not necessarily Greg Kinnear's character. So I don't know who this film is made for. And like I go back to what my original statement about dads. I think this movie is made for dads. I think this movie is made for dads who have kids who play baseball, for dads who want to go and have a good cry, but don't want anybody to know. Like, a whole bunch of dad groups will go to this film. And they'll just sit there and they'll be like, we can't tell anybody we're crying now, but I'm crying. No, you're crying. Like, I don't know who else this plays to, because it's not... the Little League, the age of these kids, you're never going to get these kids interested in a cancer drama. It's not no, when you look at the kind of films that they did have, that they were interested in, think about the films that I grew up with. I had like The Sandlot and The Mighty Ducks, and those films are told from a kid's perspective. Those films have child lead actors. This does not. Even with the whole Luke Wilson, Greg Kinnear thing, I didn't feel like they elevated even Bobby Jr., even Rocket. I don't think he's really elevated enough as a character to really even consider him the third lead. I don't think he wasn't played by somebody that was like, wow, this kid is gonna, blow you away with his amazing on-screen presence performance. Granted, again, I don't have audio description, so maybe he is giving 110%. I don't like to demean child actors either. It's just the story is not from their perspective. It's from the dad's perspective. So the adult male perspective about Little League. So this is the kind of film that if it was made in a different decade would have the child lead perspective. But somewhere along the way, we stopped telling these kind of films from the kids' perspectives, and we started telling them from the adults' perspectives, because it was inspirational. The coaches became the inspirational thing. But Greg Kinnear's coach here isn't really the inspirational one. It's Luke Wilson, who's off to the side, who's struggling with cancer, who becomes the team's unofficial mascot. He's the inspirational thing that's happening here. It's very weird. So yeah, I acknowledge that this transition into making the coaches the interesting thing instead of the kids happened a long time ago. Um, I was thinking about Hardball, for example, with Keanu Reeves. That came out in like 2000, 2001. And basically the same time this this movie was actually happening in real life. Um, and that film is from his perspective. The kids in that film also do have slightly bigger presence and story, but that film had like a PG-13 rating. Like, it was not trying to bring in the kids. So somewhere along the way, we just kind of stopped. We gave up on kids. We gave up on movies like The Big Green and Mighty Ducks and Little Big League. We gave up on films that were told from the kids' perspective. And we just, sports movies from kids' perspectives were just, I don't know. I don't know where they went. But this is not that. So I don't know who's going to this. Is it faith-based? Loosely? I don't think a faith-based audience is going to walk away from this film. There's nothing really here to object to. Like cursing or drug use or alcohol use or sex or nudity or anything. There's nothing objectionable here. It's a PG-rated film. And they do talk about God. There's a scene where Luke Wilson prays, but I don't think when you have cancer and you have a scene where a character prays, that uniquely makes you a faith-based movie. So I hope that does not, if you're trying to box it in that way, it's not that either. That's not what this film is. So this film is very much about a real thing that happened, and unfortunately this guy that contracted cancer ended up being the inspiration for a underdog team to learn how to play baseball and go on to not win the Little League World Series, but do way better than anyone possibly could have ever expected them to do. That was a spoiler. I'm so sorry. But literally, you can look this up. So, and there are people who probably know this stuff like the back of their hand. But I would watch it anyway. I mean, it doesn't really matter. There are plenty of stories out there where it's like, what we know. It's not like people were like, I don't want to watch Titanic because I know the boat sinks. So, like, you're here for the journey, man. You're here for the ride. You're here for the acting. I don't know what critics are going to say about this film. I haven't seen a single critic review for this. I don't care. I think it's fine. I liked it. I think it does what it needs to do. It's not. We're not talking about Oscars here for this. This is not going to be an Oscar bait film. Luke Wilson does fine. Greg Kinnear, again, his role is just not very dynamic, and I can't really say anything about any of the other characters. It's a very sort of safe movie. It plays it safe. It tries to slide in safe. It tries to give you just the right amount of information to keep you happy and keep you in your seat, and to keep dads crying. I don't know. I mean, the film really sells you on the message of, I just want to see my son play baseball one more time. Just one more time. I feel like any dad out there is just going to be like, I totally relate. My son doesn't even play baseball and I'm crying. So, yeah, I would mark this to dads all over the place. I just find dads and be like, hey, have you seen this movie? It's about being a dad. What? Oh my God, I have to see it. I love movies about being a dad. Is it a movie about being a great? Yeah, it's a movie about being a great dad. Oh my. So yes, that's what this movie is. And it's fairly enjoyable. So now it comes time to the point where, I've told you why we should have audio description. So you're wondering, am I going to throw? I'm not going to throw at it. I'm just not going to do that. So I'm not grading the film. This film has no grade. I would say for blind people it's unwatchable, but as a blind person, because I'm saying that, I would not give it a grade. I can't really grade it because I don't functionally fully have all of the film. That's the problem about being a blind film critic. And usually when I use the term unwatchable, it's just to remind my target audience, which is blind people, that it is unwatchable. But as this film is has asked me to screen it for its initial release in theaters, I won't stick it with that. I'm I'm optimistic that Well is like, oh shit, we want audio description for our films. Yeah, we do. We would like to see, we don't like to just have our choices limited. We kind of like to be like normal people when we go to the movies and just be like, oh, well, we could literally see anything. I could walk into theaters 1 through 20 at a 20 screen theater, and all of those films should have audio description. Why not? The possibilities are endless here. I would love one day to just have a streaming service subscription and not have to like scroll through and be like, well, what has audio description, or filter by audio description, which is an option on so many streaming services. So yeah, I would like it. Well, go. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, nudge in the other direction. Um, I I'm not a tomato meter critic, so there's really no loss or gain here. I can't give it a fresh or rotten score, but to be totally honest, I have a feeling that if this film did have audio description, I would mark it fresh. I don't really, there's nothing really objectionable here, but there's also nothing that sends it like into the into the world of greatness. It's 105 minutes of, yeah, that was fine. I enjoyed that. Yeah, that was a decent experience at the theaters. So if you would like to spend some quality time at the theaters crying as a father this Labor Day weekend, check this film out. If you're going to try to bring your kids to this, I don't know that they're going to be that engaged. To be totally honest, it doesn't really feel like a film that engages children, but I'm not going to say it doesn't. There are kids in here, and maybe that's enough. Maybe the new kids have been gaslit so much by not having Mighty Ducks movies coming out that they're just like, they're like, yeah, this is what we watch now. They're wise beyond their years, and they sit through cancer dramas. So I don't know. If this had been me back in the day, and I'm in the middle of and somebody tries to have me watch this in between like Sandlot, Mighty Ducks, and then maybe like Rookie of the Year, and they're like, well, let's slide this movie in there, I'd be like, what is this? This isn't the same thing. Get your adult movie away from me, sir. So yeah, it does feel like this movie is targeted for adults. I don't know if that was the purpose. I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, but it does feel like. And what I would say to anybody who's trying to make a film like this again, find a child actor and give them enough to do so that they feel like they have lead status. Cast a child actor who's dynamic enough to carry the film, and put them up there and give them stuff to do, and try to find other stuff. Give your kids stuff to do, so that way it feels at least 50-50. This doesn't really feel 50-50. It feels like these kids, I don't really know individually who they are. We've just got one who is the son of the guy who has cancer, and some other kids. You know what? I can give you distinct personalities of most of the Mighty Ducks. So that just two very different franchise series. Obviously sports and everything, but it's totally valid. If you want to try to pull kids in, if you want to get kids excited about a film, I think kids are going to come in this and be like, "What, Dad? Why are you crying, Dad? Why did you bring me?" But it's nice family entertainment for Labor Day weekend. So I think it's funny because I'm bringing up the kids thing really hard because in my press kit it says like, I think kids and family was like the second listed genre. It was like drama, and then it was kids and family. I was like, I don't know about that kids thing. Maybe I would love to see a test audience of under 10s, for this film. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see them choose this or, The Sandlot. Like, which one would you pick? I know which one they're going to pick. Anyway, this is in theaters, so check it out. And thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you guys on the other side if I get more screeners. We'll see.